Hello, good morning everyone. We are from Group 7 that consists of Nurul Alia Devi, Risnadia Fitria Melani, Pinkan Valina Putri Fortuna, and Ansel Rahman Fatwani. Our topic of presentation today is about discourse and identity. We apologize for putting too many sentences in the PowerPoint, and please listen carefully to the recording since there are a lot of information or additional explanation that is not written inside the PowerPoint. First of all, do you know what discourse analysis is? So, according to Michael Saps, there are 3 points about discourse analysis. First, discourse analysis is the linguistic analysis of naturally occurring connected spoken or written discourse. Second, discourse analysis attempts to study the organization of language above the sentence or above the clause, and therefore to study larger linguistic units such as conversational exchanges or written text. The last, discourse analysis, including the study of language in use in social context, and in particular with interaction or dialogue between speakers.
The next one is the definition of identity. All this time, we often talk about people have particular attributes as things inside themselves. We also often hear or even ask to ourselves some questions like, who are you? And what do you think about yourself? How the world views you? And how others define you? From this point, we believe that people have an identity. So, what is identity? Identity is hence, as Anna Devina describes it, crucially about conveying to one another what kind of people we are, which geographical, ethnic, social communities we belong to, where we stand in relation to ethical and moral questions, or where our loyalties are in political terms. Sketchily, identity is the qualities, beliefs, and personality that represent and describe who you are. Identity includes the many relationships people cultivate, such as their identity as a child, friend, partner, and parent. It also involves the external characteristic over which a person has little or no control, such as height, race, gender, or socioeconomic class. Identity also encompasses any other aspects such as political opinions, moral attitudes, and religious beliefs, all of which guide the choices one makes on a daily basis. Identity is defined by the values people hold, which dictate the choices they make. This identity is built day by day among the interaction with others, our personal judgment according to different situations, the development of our potential, and the process of finding opportunities to fulfill our purpose in life. The socio-cultural background knowledge we put up with also determines how our identity is shaped. And since it seems that we will also discuss about the minority identity, let's first see what is the definition of these terms. So, minority identity can be defined as any number of persons or groups forming a social unit that is numerically challenged relative to other groups within a polity, or one that has limited access to economic and political power, or people who subscribes to supposedly known mainstream values.
The relationship between discourse analysis and identity. One person to another person will always have different interpretation for themselves, especially in terms of using language. This is influenced by their ethnicity, geography, social group they belong to, education, political terms, and many more. This concept makes us think about how the use of language and its meaning can be different. What affects that difference? And does a particular situation will work on how people deliver this speech? In this case, discourse can analyze this phenomenon and draw conclusions in order to clarify what exactly the meaning that a person wants to convey and cut off misunderstanding among individuals or even groups of people. For example, in a first school class, the teacher wants them to draw a picture of their mate. And there's a student who draws a black, big mouth and lips showing Afro-American features in a jeering way. The students then give their paintings to the teacher while they are laughing, and the teacher saw the reason behind it. Angry and irritated, the teacher asks the students why they have done that drawing and start to speak that it's not appropriate to laugh on someone else's work, and especially mocking on someone's race. The students listened to the teacher without much attention, and some of them started to rebuke the teacher, accusing of ignoring their everyday life realities that one of the students' drawing is what black looks like. Why the students are laughing is because black people is considered different and backward compared to white people. The dialogue between the teacher and some of the teacher's students are proof of how identity is shown throughout the script. Example of discourse and identity. When you say, "I like your pants," to a stranger and he replied, "Can you see my pants?" You probably will skip a beat and start to confuse. Why he isn't say thank you but addressed me with a question like that? Then you finally realized that he is not a people in your area, but he is a British. How do you know that he is a Brit? Even though people from English-speaking countries are speaking English, but some groups might be speaking different in some words because of their region or geography. It is common to say pants in American English, but British do not say that because pants means underwear among the British. You won't embarrass them and even yourself again, will you?
The idea of a defined and almost exclusive target readership is an extension of the context-determined role of the media. Delimiting the readership can be concluded as one way in which minority media construct and maintain the identity of the group they serve or represent. Such media accentuates a linguistic strategy and a frame of identity of certain minority people or groups as the source or representation of their publications. Several referential identity frames commonly used by the media are race, ethnicity, and religious beliefs. One of the reflections that such media pointed out is by using claims in their slogans, which can actually indicate that these media have the same target readership and in-house generated group identities. For example, claims that New Nation is Britain's #1 black newspaper and The Voice is Britain's best black paper. Apart from claims and slogan, the other ways to reflect the identity group they serve are by way of self-ascription and by judging the pattern of coverage. Sometimes, some media also reflects the subdivision of a particular identity. For example, the aforementioned New Nation as Britain's #1 black newspaper, The Voice as Britain's best black paper, and African Voice, described as Britain's #1 African newspaper, reflect the subdivision of Black Britain into Black British African, Black British Caribbean, and Black, which mean the other black. Thus, it delimits the clientele and clearly identifies a target readership. Before we get into the discussion, to make the explanation easier to understand, here I will list some British media names that reflect a minority identity and their strategies as an example. So, with regard to immigrants, the concept of varieties of English permit the isolation and analysis of characteristic forms at phonological, lexical, syntactic, semantic, and discourse level. Several minority media employ linguistic strategies to define their target readership and by so doing set up a relationship between language and the identity of the communities they serve. For example, JC or Jewish Chronicle, The Voice, West Africa, Ghana Review International, and Amini. One way in which JC demonstrates its commitment to preservation of Jewish cultural identity is in its use of code switching. In this case, sometimes some readers need a special knowledge about aspects of the Jewish culture and Yiddish language conveyed to have a full understanding of the terms used by JC. For example, the word mazal, which means luck. Essentially, this implies that the readers require bilingual and bicultural competencies in English and Yiddish in order to legitimately assert their membership of the group. While The Voice once used patois, that is confined to the entertainment section within the paper, which is the arena for popular and global culture. Sometimes, since the terms are derived from English words, non-speakers or non-readers of patois may be able to figure out the meaning without seeking a translator's assistance. However, the fact remains, though, that the text is not a native English text and remains characteristic of the readership. And to reflect the Africa's post-colonial nation-states, some media such as West Africa, Ghana Review International, and Amini highlight the diversity of languages and cultural structures of this group. Such media cater to this diversity and therefore adopt a trans-ethnic perspective. While the nation of origin remains a rallying core, the component nationalism are equally recognized and advertised through language use. For example, a poem entitled Together We Can Build a United Future, published by Amini, rendered its simple message that is Happy New Year in several regional languages including Akan, Ewe, and Ga. The fact that it is published in Amini would suggest that its readers, some of whom are British citizens by virtue of their possession of a UK passport, are culturally Ghanaian.
The next one is counterpositioning. For the purpose of assert group identity, reference is sometimes made to the general body of culture that is exclusive to a group, thus counterpositioning it to the other in the sense of Rathensi's postmodern frame 3. Excerpt 4 illustrates this approach to asserting group membership. It identifies and promotes a set of cultural markers of group difference and identity, and stresses the outsider status of non-member of the group. The following is the excerpt 4. Please read and look carefully in the inscription on the excerpt 4. There are 3 points related to the excerpt. The first one is the rejoinder by Ms. Pringle, endorsed by the editor of GC, may be considered as representing an institutional position on the subject and thus confirms the role of the minority press as protector of group values and culture. The second is the italicized clause adopts the as or them strategy of counterpositioning the minority to the mainstream or in-group versus out-group memberships. The last one is the use of the collective we by a compatriot in the utterance we were not missing much, addressed to John Diamond, GC columnist and British Jew, as he inspected the prices of gammon and bacon at Safeways on Stamford Hill, London, is often predicated upon an assumption of insider versus outsider group identities.
Anchoring. Anchoring is a technique typically used by the media to focus on the main objects they receive as information, and is developed into something new for decision making and usually triggers readers to be interested and trust the news or vice versa. The game of praise media in using language can give rise to a different understandings of discourse and will be interpreted in various perspectives. When viewed from a sociolinguistic point of view, the title is very influential to the reader. Such titles can influence to believe, hate, or cause cons without looking at the content of the letter itself. For example, cheesy in home news. The presence of Ghanaian and Israeli immigrants in the UK has a different position in society. Media home news put Israel on its page for subtle propaganda as well as the approval of putting down the Israel curriculum. Another factor is also seen in the interest of the British in reading news pages in the media. Furthermore, anchoring information providers that have been trusted by the public are very influential in controlling public opinion.
The next one is focusing. In view of that the objective of minority newspapers is to foreground issues relating to their respective groups, it is understandable that they occupy the headlines and front pages as shown in Table 17.1. Please look carefully at the table. On the table, it shows that in-group news items pertaining to the different client communities dominate the headlines and front pages of the selected newspapers. Coverage of national events by minority media is driven by how the community can impact or be affected by the event in question. We shall cite two recent media reports to illustrate this. It was election day on 6 May 2010 in the United Kingdom. The Voice, 12 to 18 April 2010, keyed into the ongoing Operation Blackfoot campaign by running on its front page a picture of US President Barack Obama as in figure 17.1. The image in figure 17.1 uses intertextuality to invoke two symbolic references. The first is Bob Marley's popular clarion call to oppressed people to get up, stand up for their rights and not give up the fight. The second symbolic reference is to the historic victory achieved by Barack Obama in the 2008 US presidential election with his slogan incorporated into "Yes, we can make a change, ensure you vote May 6, emphasize mind, both in vote group history and identity."
Future direction. Discourse theory assumes that all object and action are meaningful, and the meaning of object action are bestowed by historically specific system of arrangement. Every discourse is a political and social construction where the subject position of the actor show and gives meanings to object and practices. Therefore, discourse and meaning are continent, historical, and never complete. Discourse theory seeks how social practice articulate and contrast the discourse that shape social reality. As mentioned above, language is a form of a social practice. This has an impact on three meanings. First, that language is part of social community and not out of it. Second, the language is a social practice itself. And the third, the language is a social process that is conditioned by society outside of linguistic problems. The relationship between language and society is like two independent entities interconnected. The relationship between language and society is not external, but rather internal and dialectical. Language is a part of society, and thus linguistic phenomena become special social phenomena. This is what underlines the fact that linguistic phenomena are social in nature, that wherever people speak, listen, write, read, they do so in ways that depend on social condition and also have social effect. The conclusion, language is one of element of the social arena, and all linguistic phenomena are social, but not all social phenomena are necessary part of linguistic. Above it has been explained that language is a social process, and the following will discuss this by taking an approach through differences in discourse and text. A linguist named Halliday distinguishes text into two, namely written text and spoken text. Oral text is anything that is spoken in oral discourse, which in general is a translation of what is said. Understanding a discourse is not enough to use verbal media. Although the text is primarily verbal, it is necessary to capture the visual signals. For example, when speaking, activities relate to gesture, facial expression, and altitude cannot be perfectly understood without reference to their respective uses. Visual can accompany a conversation that will help determine its meaning. Just like a fake smell can make a non-bad question look bad. Visual can also replace speech that can still convey the message perfectly. It looks like it is nodding, like a head shaking head. It can be meaning yes, no, and I don't know. Okay, that's all. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you for your attention. We apologize if there are many mistakes we made. That's all the presentation of our group. If anyone have any questions, feel free to ask any questions in the comment section. Also, if you have any additional information regarding to our topic today, please don't hesitate to share it in the comment section as well. Thank you and have a nice day.